Hello and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Jan Bundesmann and I will guide you through the session about deployment of cloud instance with orcharhino. So as I said, I will show you, give you a quick demonstration how you can manage and deploy cloud instances with orcharhino. Before I give you this quick demonstration, let me just lose some words about who we are and why we do what we do. I am a senior IT consultant at Ethics. Ethics is a consulting company located in the south of Germany, and we're focusing on data center automation using open source tools. And one of these tools is the orcharhino that I will show you later. Our goal is to simplify data centers, and we use a lot of different tools. Some tools focus on the real infrastructure backbone of your data center, like SaltStack, Ansible, Puppet. But we also are dealing with the topics centered around application deployment, like Docker, Kubernetes, Kafka, for instance, and so on. Our goal in all these topics is to automate as much as possible, because we think that automation helps you to speed up your deployments and to increase stability. It does this, for instance, by achieving reproducibility. If you write all your configuration as code, then you can do the same actions again and again. And this, in turn, helps you to orchestrate your services and eventually to even enable self-services for your developers. Now, there's a lot of tools involved in, or a lot of, let's say, names involved in data center automation. First of all, we're dealing with the Linux mainly, so we have knowledge on all the enterprise Linux distributions, know how to automate their configuration, their deployment. But of course, we also deal with Windows Server. We know configuration management tools. We know how to deal with different hypervisors and with different cloud providers. And in all these topics, orcharhino is one of our central tools that we always encourage you to use. So what is this orcharhino? Orcharhino is a software product that helps you dealing with three major aspects of infrastructure management, lifecycle management. First of all, it can help you with the deployment of servers, with virtual machines, with the bare metal servers. And after this first deployment, it helps you with the configuration management and the release management, or the package management for those servers. We have the three main topics, let's say. First is deployment. Orcharhino can deploy hosts in many different ways. This is a rather complex sketch here. Which ways exist for orcharhino to deploy a new host? So I won't go into detail about this. Basically, it's about using the unattended installation routines that most of the Linux distributions bring, or also Windows. But for Linux, this would be Kickstart, Preset, or Autoyast. They can be leveraged to really have an unattended installation of any Linux server environment. We use techniques like DHCP, pre-boot execution environments, and we can use the orcharhino to clone VM templates, or to use, again, minimal boot images to perform a more static, let's say, installation. After your hosts are installed, deployment is not important for them anymore. So we go over to the next topic, release management. So if you want to, you can use the orcharhino to synchronize repositories and provide them to your hosts, but not only provide them, but do this in a well-controlled way, in a way that you can create snapshots at certain dates of your repositories, in a way that one host only receives the snapshots of a certain date. For instance, your testing host would receive rather new packages, while the production hosts would rely on well-tested older version of your repositories. And we can also provide errata for all the here mentioned Linux distributions. Those errata would help you to identify security issues on your servers and to patch them by providing the upgrades for those packages affected by security vulnerabilities. And in addition, Orcharhino also cares for configuration management. That means there is included Puppet, SaltStack, Ansible, and you can control these tools through the UI of the Orcharhino. And you can also manage the roles, the classes, the states that are used within these configuration management frameworks. They follow different approaches, like Puppet is using a pull-based approach, Ansible is using a push-based approach. And we will see Ansible in action even later in the demo. So these were the, let's say, main competences of Orcharhino, what it can do, but what is it really? So first of all, I said it's a piece of software which is bundled around mainly Foreman and Catalog. We have an engineering and a quality assurance department. We are building extensions and also core functionalities for those tools, Foreman and Catalog. We are integrating other open source tools in our repositories. We are extending it in a certain way, for instance, that we provide errata for distributions that do not provide them by themselves, like CentOS. So errata is something that originally comes from Red Hat. Some other distributions include those errata in their repositories. CentOS does not do so, and also Debian and Ubuntu do not do so, but our customers can obtain the errata for those distributions from us. We compile and package client software to connect your host to the Orcharhino, and we provide templates and test them for the deployment of all those operating systems. Of course, customers also have access to our support, and they can use our consultants to help with more complex problems. We also offer trainings for Orcharhino and the whole, let's say, universe around these tools. And this as a whole now is what we call Orcharhino. It's a piece of software, a lot of services around them. Okay, this was just a quick overview over Orcharhino. If you have questions, feel free to post them in the chat. So BrightTalk is offering some chat for asking questions. I will see them. There's a certain lag. So I will now start with the demo, but you still can also ask questions for the first part, and I will see them later, and I will either answer them instantly, or I will find a suiting slot for answering questions. So feel free to ask me anything about demonstration content or about what I just showed. Okay, for demonstration, I will switch my screen sharing and go into my Orcharhino instance. So you should now see my screen. This is the host overview of my Orcharhino. You see in this overview, there are 3 hosts listed. The first one is the Orcharhino itself. It's deployed as an instance in the AWS cloud, and you see there are 2 more hosts that I prepared for this webinar. So I want to start with showing you how you can create a new host, because this is also something that will take a bit more time until this host is really finished. So let's start with it so we can later see the actual host. To that end, I click on the Create Host button, or Otherwise, I could also go through the menu and click on hosts, create host, which will lead me to the same form. And of course, I have to enter some values here. You see, there's quite a lot. I will do this quick because probably you for the moment don't need to understand all those fields. I have to give it a name. Call it webinar demo 2 because the webinar demo 1 already exists. And I have to define a host group. Basically, this host group fills out all those fields we have seen here. I choose this CentOS 7 test / WordPress. And now you see it's working, filling out all the values. You will, for instance, now see where this will be deployed. This is in the Dublin data center of AWS Cloud. Use a specific compute profile. And well, there are a lot of parameters. I just click on submit for the moment because we want to keep it easy. Now the deployment process starts, and this will take roughly 6 to 7 minutes until the host is actually ready. So what did orcharhino do here? It did some things. I think that the important thing is it just created a cloud instance in the AWS cloud of some type. I think it is to medium. And it will now also create a DNS record. So this host will also be globally reachable through its host name. And that's why the progress here is currently, let's say, waiting. Orcharhino is waiting for the response from AWS about the IP address of this newly created host, which you then can use to create the new DNS record. For the DNS, I also used a cloud service, so we use Route 53, another AWS service. Okay, now we're in the next step. Now the deployment is running in the background. You see here our status is pending installation. And while it is still pending, let's just go back to all hosts. We now see 4 hosts, but of course this view is not only meant for seeing all the hosts that are available, but it's like the central place for managing hosts. So what can we do now? Let's take the second host. We call this a webinar, delete this host. And what I want to show you here is that I can easily delete this host. I just can go to this drop-down menu here and say delete. Now asks me, I don't know if you can see this through the screen sharing, if I really want to delete this host, and I confirm this by clicking OK. Now it will delete the DNS record and will also delete the instance from AWS. It also disappears from the list, of course. Okay, so this is, I think, one quite important thing. If this is a virtual machine on premises, basically the same will happen. If it's a bare metal server, it will just delete the entry from the list here. So there's one more prepared host, this webinar minus demo 1. What can I see here? If I just click on the name, I see the details about the host status. For instance, you can see that the overall status is okay. It's already installed, apparently. All errata have been applied. I already told you that errata is a concept about knowing which vulnerabilities affect your system. Yeah, okay, it fulfills its purpose because the purpose is not specified. The subscription, it's fully entitled, which means, well, this host is registered to the orcharhino to receive packages from there. And then this traces indicates if a process or the whole host requires any restart. So this is like the first view we can see. We also see domain, the IP address, and some more information. So this host is running CentOS 7. yeah, I started it yesterday. And because I'm the admin user, you can also see who started this host. I told you that there's a way to control the host, the host's packages. This can be done through this button content here. If I click on it, I get a new view on this host, which tells me, or which gives me information about the packages and also some more, say, yeah, host details. So if there are any errata, I would see them popping up in this area here. So the installable errata. So a bit more details about the concept of errata. An erratum is basically just a file containing meta information about security vulnerabilities, which packages are affected, and which more recent packages would fix those security vulnerabilities. These packages are provided by the, well, distributors, and they usually appear as soon as some security vulnerability is fixed. Orcharhino can now take the information and it keeps track of all the packages you install on your host, so it knows when one host is affected by some vulnerability, and it would show this case here. So I can then update the package. How can I update packages or install packages? There are several ways. I will show just a normal package installation now. And of this, you can basically transfer how this would also work for errata. You see there's this tab packages. If I click on it, I have several menu items like actions, installed, and applicable. If I would click on installed, I see all the packages that are installed on my system. If I click on applicable, I will see all the packages that can be upgraded. And on actions, I can perform package actions. I just click here. This will bring me to a new form. And for instance, I could now install the package htop. See here the desired actions package install. And if I click on perform now, it will bring me to a new view, to the job view, because this is a job in terms of Orcharhino. I see that this will run on this one host, and you see there's a status. Oh, it's already successful. So this was quite a quick job. I could just go back, but I can also scroll a bit down and see here the detailed view for each host where this job has run, which is only one at the moment. I click on it, and this leads me to the shell output of the package installation. So I could see some more packages. Eventually, I see that the access status 0, so this package installation was successful. Yeah, I can go back, of course, go back to the content, and the same way as I installed it, I could also remove the package, but I just want to show you then if I go to installed, and then now filter for the package htop, which I just installed. It's already listed here, 220-3. If I check the package here and say remove, I would instantly remove the package. This brings me to the same job overview, and I could also show you the detailed view. And it's already completed with the access status of 0. Okay, eventually I would not do things as package installation on a host per host base. Of course, you can perform package installation, package upgrades, errata installation as a bulk action. There is something we call host collections. I would combine several hosts there. Just create such a host collection. I call it webinar. Now I add hosts to this host collection. Just do it by hand now, but I could also write some filter, add those hosts. And now I see here I can perform a package installation, removal, and update for the whole host collection, or also this router installation at one click for the whole set of hosts. Okay, let's go back to our all hosts overview. We see that there has been some status change. Webinar demo 2 is now in the red state. And if I hover over it, I see there is a pop-up which says now the build is installed. Okay, I could also manage my packages now for Webinar Demo 2. But maybe there is a more complex things I can do. For instance, configuration management. I mentioned this already, and I now want to show you quickly what this would mean. Let's first start with Demo 1 host. This one is prepared in the sense that I assigned some Ansible roles to it. Just view which roles I assigned, and click on this edit, and then I see basically the same mask that I have seen before for the deployment. If you go on Ansible roles, you see there's a list of available roles, which is currently empty because all the available roles have been assigned to my host. Let's go back on cancel, and I could say here in this drop-down menu where there's written schedule remote job, there's a point run Ansible roles. If I click this button, what will happen? We end up again in this job view, which we have seen before. Now this is a bit more complex. If I open the per host view, I can again see the output. If I go down, if you are familiar with Ansible, you see that this is just a typical Ansible output. Of course, this will take some time. What does it do? It will install the Apache web server. It will also install MariaDB, and it will install the WordPress files. So basically, this performs a WordPress installation just by one click. As a single host deployment, of course. So let's just wait until this is finished. Or while this is working, usually you would deploy the database and the front end on different hosts. So this is not like a, let's say, production use case. It's just a quick installation of a WordPress instance for demonstration purpose. Eventually you want to have like one database server and something like a couple of front-end servers. This is a bit more complex because you would require a multi-host deployment, which with the hosts depending on each other. This is also possible through an additional plugin, which is called application-centric deployment. It's not included here in the demo. There are other webinars focusing on this topic. If you're curious, you will find them here in Bright Talk as well. These will enable us to deploy several hosts to eventually achieve such a goal, like having a multi-host deployment of a complex application. Okay, now I see here that the installation has gone through. Again, the exit status eventually tells orcharhino if this has been successful. By the way, it opens an SSH connection from orcharhino to my managed host. The ability to connect to the host is configured during installation. So this will always work if you do not prevent it somehow. Okay, let's just see what happened. I just opened the web page on this host. I copy this URL, paste it, I just have to adjust the path. And I see this is just the fresh WordPress installation that I have on this cloud host. Okay, we won't go into details about this installation here. Let's go back to the orcharhino and back to our hosts. So you see here now there is also a new field called execution, and the last execution succeeded. This is just the Ansible call we just performed. I can also see here under reports, this is like the detailed overview of this Ansible run. So this happened 2 minutes ago, and if I click on this date, then I would see it's in the main task a bit more elaborate what it actually has done. Okay, let's go back to our host overview and see what our new host tells us. So I already said that this is already installed. You maybe already noticed that I used the host group CentOS 7 WordPress. So what's the difference to the other host group? We'll see in a moment. If I now click on it, the first thing we see is that the status is erroneous. Why is it so? Because there's a reboot required. The first installation usually requires that we perform one reboot. I will show you in a moment how to perform the power management. Right now, we see one more thing. Again, this last execution succeeded. So there has also been some remote action. What happened? If I go again to this button reports, I see that there has been some Ansible call. Why? Because in the host group, some Ansible roles were defined, and in this case, 1 minute after the host has reported as being installed, Ansible started a call and performed some things. So again, 31 applied tasks. So actually it's just the same that we did for the webinar demo 1. So also here we have a WordPress installation on this new host, which without having to do anything else. I just deployed my host. And if I now would visit the WordPress installation on that host, working. I'll go to webinar-demo2 orcharhino demo.de/WordPress. And I see again, this is the installation screen for the first time visit of Orcharhino or of a WordPress instance. So you could prepare a host group and everyone that from your customers, users would want an Orcharhino and a WordPress instance. By doing a 2-click installation, you would have such an instance. Okay. So one last thing I want to show you is how we can do power management. This has to be done through the hosts overview. I just check my host, and I could now say in this menu select action, there's a lot of things that I can do. Again, I can do run all Ansible roles, which is just chose for one host. I can do this as a bulk action. And I can also change the power state. And if I say the power state should be reboot, this will just reboot my host. And as soon as it has rebooted, the red marker here would change to the green one we also saw on the first host. So that's basically what I wanted to show to you. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I will wait for some while because, as I said already, there is some lag of about 30 to 40 seconds. If you ask your questions until they appear on my screen. I will already delete the webinar demo 1 because I also kind of obliged to clean up the environment here, and we don't need that one anymore. So this will now disappear, and I click on the webinar demo 2. So the reboot is not yet finished. So since there are no questions, I assume that I answered all of your questions. And with that, I want to thank you for your attention, and hope to see you again soon with one of our next webinars. Thank you and goodbye.